When my brother was first captured 50 years ago, women were not in combat fighting. They were not in the combat duties. And I remember thinking, I wish I was a man so I could go and fight the enemy. Who knew that it was going to continue for years and years and years?
I think the story of Delia Alvarez is important here because there's a sense that women are supposed to support the men at war, right? They have these literally supporting roles.
When my brother was captured, if you were a family member of a serviceman, you did not speak out. It was unheard of, it was unthinkable to speak out. But then the anger just started growing and frustrations, tremendous frustrations over the years. Can you imagine 5, 6 years? My mother, who had a 6th grade formal education, was so well read. I mean, she read all her life. She became so well informed of Indo-Chinese history, she could have taught a class in college on Indo-Chinese history. She recognized the war was wrong much earlier than I did.
I like what my mother says, though, about in just being able to tell the length of time of my brother's imprisonment and what's happened as far as his career in the Navy. Because when he was captured, he was a Lieutenant JG, and he is now a Lieutenant Commander, and she doesn't want him to remain in prison to become an admiral. And I think that really...
I have said that so many times. I want him home. I don't want an admiral in North Vietnam.
I remember very distinctly when I went home and my mother was watching the news. And it was the typical news of the day. And the Marines had gone through a village and there was deaths of villagers and children, and a Vietnamese woman was holding her child and crying because the child was dead. And I looked at my mother and she was crying. So I said, "Mom, why are you crying? It's the enemy that's crying." And she said, "No, mija, I'm crying for my child as that woman is crying for her child." There wasn't an enemy. I mean, there was a mother crying for another mother. So I started thinking a lot about, wait a minute, what's going on here? What also had a profound impact on me was about 1969. Life magazine had a special edition, and it was 100 pictures of the soldiers killed in 1 week's time period. And to see actual soldiers in their faces was really quite profound. And so it became clear that this war went beyond just my brother. This was a lot of people suffering. And for a long time, all the country heard was about the support of the war, in the sense of we have to support our troops, which I totally agreed. And but there wasn't anyone speaking out against the war. Well, then we spoke out.
You're talking about being used. One of the things that we have highly resented, and I'm talking about my family, is that the reasons and excuses for my brother being a prisoner have changed like the seasons. In 1964, my brother was captured, to February of 1965. Our government was stalling for time in order to initiate the involvement in Indochina. My brother lost 6 months of his life at that time.
And then we just wanted the war to stop and bring all our loved ones home.
When I was a little Mexican running around the deserts of Arizona, there was always this mystique about tall white men with gray hair running industry, running the military, running academies and colleges. They deserved your respect. And in the military, that idea fell apart. People are screaming in my face, telling me what to do. and telling me things that I just don't believe. We're gonna go over there and kill indigenous people. You know, you lying in bed with a black dude in the next bed. You know, aren't we indigenous people? Yeah, we are. Why is this supposed to be exciting to me? It started wearing very thin rapidly.
Those that went in the early 60s, before the Tet Offensive in 68 or so, were really pretty much believing in the American ideal of going and fighting communism before they come to our shores, which was the belief. But after the Tet Offensive, after the demonstrations really started in this country, the young men that were drafted after that time went in much more aware of what was going on. They had FTA on their helmets, which meant F the Army. They were politically aware. They weren't as ready to take orders and have that idea of ours is not to ask but why, ours is but to do or die. They were asking why are we here?
Chicanos and Chicanas across the Southwest are saying, why is it that at our high schools, and you have demographic concentrations of Mexican Americans in East LA, San Antonio neighborhoods, there's really places where they're concentrated. Why is it in our neighborhood we get, and it still happens today, we get the US military recruiter from all forces, but not a single college recruiter? Why don't we get college recruiters? And so you have this shift among the broader population as well. There's time for doubts to accumulate. The easy answers no longer seem so easy anymore.
The Chicano anti-Vietnam War movement does not exist without the research of Ralph Guzman. He is the verifiable proof of their common sense understanding that this war was disproportionately affecting our communities.
He looked at the number of Mexican American males of military age, and he figured out they composed 13.8% of the population in 1960. And then he looked at the casualty rolls coming out from the 5 southwestern states, which is where the Mexican American population is concentrated, and he deduced that you have disproportionate casualty rates, 13.8% of the population, 19.4% of casualties.
The local Brown Beret chapter in LA decided they would reach out to the community and let's have an anti-war march. They called it a Chicano moratorium because that was the term being used for peace protests. We marched to what was called Laguna Park at that time in the heart of LA, maybe 2.5 miles. 5,000 people marched that day, maybe more.
We were getting word from others that there was a division in the country. The Vietnamese used to show us homemade movies of the riots and the demonstrations, anti-war demonstrations, the Berkeley, the riots in Watts, Detroit, Washington riots, and how the American people are supportive of the peace-loving people and against the neo-colonialistic policies of the U.S. imperialists, war-loving mongers and all this stuff.
My brother's still living in the world at 64. And it's hard to explain to him what has happened. You know, I had written some letters hoping they'd get through to him and trying to describe the Chicano movement, the Great Boycott, the Let Us Boycott, the Brown, proud to be Brown. There's the Black movement, and I'm afraid he doesn't understand it. How can he?
I, as most of the other men up there, believe that the anti-war activities did prolong our stay. To what extent, I cannot really say.
It was hard. See, they didn't know what we were going through. And I could sense what they're going through. But as a matter of policy, I just don't talk about it.
Just before you came home, your sister Delia said all hell might break loose when you found out about her anti-war activity. What happened when you did find out about it?
Well, first of all hell did not break loose. We were glad. I was glad to be home. She was glad to have me home, for sure. I'm convinced that, of course, to a large degree, her activities were based on emotion. We were there for a long time. She wanted us home. She wanted me home. Of course, she lives in a free country. She has a right to express her opinions.
You and he disagree on some points regarding the war. Would you describe this as a friendly discussion, or did you have a heated discussion?
We have an understanding that we need each other, and that there's a lot of things that I'm going to learn, as our family's going to learn about his experiences, and that's going to work, both ways. So that the only thing that we have really been able to discuss, and which is the only thing that really has to be said, is that we respect each other's opinions.
We moved on. We were very close. We grew up together. And it was time to move on. For us, the war ended in February of 1973. I know it went on till 1975, but for us, it was over.